media at the Corvinus University. He joined Toastmasters in January because he has always been afraid of public speaking and he wanted to get over this fear. He is on presentation mastery phase, and this is his second speech. And what he asked me to pay attention in his speech is his vocabulary and the structure of the speech. So in your feedback to him, please also note these parts. The title of his speech is Just Showing Up, and please welcome Demand.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Let me begin. Have any of you ever had a goal you wanted to achieve but couldn't do it? Well, as it turns out, I'm a bit of an expert at setting goals and not achieving them. So I thought I would share my experience with all of you today. A long time ago, I had read that Woody Allen once said, 80% of success is just showing up. I never really thought much about this until a few years ago. In around 2016, I saw this really skinny guy on TV easily beating up a huge muscular guy who was almost twice his size. I later learned that that skinny guy was a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Now, for guys who don't know what Jiu-Jitsu is, it's basically two people dressing up in pajamas and rolling around on the ground, trying to break each other's bones. Well, it sounds like fun, right? Who wouldn't want to learn it? I was fascinated. So I went and got myself enrolled in a Jiu-Jitsu academy. I turned up for my first class, all motivated and pumped up, ready to dive in and get started on my journey to becoming an awesome Jiu-Jitsu fighter. But I was in for a rude shock. I thought I was athletic, but that first class was a disaster. I learned that I was bad at Jiu-Jitsu. But there was one guy who made me feel good about myself, and that was James. I mean, I was bad, but James was pathetic. James was this plump guy who seemed like he had never exercised in his life, and he had zero coordination of his hands and legs. Most of the time, you couldn't tell if he was fighting or trying to mop the floor with his body. But he seemed to be completely unaware of how bad he was, and he always had a huge smile on his face. Regardless, I was miserable at the end of that first class, and I was already having second thoughts about my decision to learn Jiu-Jitsu on the drive back home. But I really wanted to learn it, so I pushed myself and continued. And I went to class now and again, and I tried to read up everything on Jiu-Jitsu on the internet. And after a couple of months, do you know what changed? Nothing. I was still really bad, and I got frustrated and ultimately quit. At the end of the year, while I was reviewing my goals, I was reminded of how badly I had failed at learning Jiu-Jitsu. So I thought I would give it another shot and went back to class the next year. But I had had a long gap and I was quite nervous. I did not want to have another demoralizing experience. So I was waiting anxiously to see who I was going to be paired up with. But Lady Luck seemed to be on my side, because when it came time to fight, I was paired up with good old James. I was overjoyed. I thought this is going to be a piece of cake as the timer went off and we locked horns. But to my utter horror, James beat me, and he beat me within 2 minutes. I just couldn't understand what had happened. It has to be luck, I thought to myself. And I asked for a rematch. And this time around, I lasted 30 seconds and he had beaten me again. I was in a daze. I couldn't understand what had just happened. It was a really humbling experience. But I decided to swallow my pride, and I went up to him after class and asked him, "Dude, how the hell did you get so good at this?" James, with his usual smile, said, "Well, when I started Jiu-Jitsu, I had a very simple goal, and that was to attend class regularly. And I'm really happy because I managed to attend 250 classes in the past year." I was stunned. I went back home and tried to calculate how many classes I had attended. And the answer was a mere 28 classes. At that moment, I was reminded of Woody Allen's quote, 80% of success is just showing up. That was a light bulb moment for me. And I realized why I had failed at many other things before. Now, unfortunately, I didn't really continue Jiu-Jitsu, and it still remains on my to-do list. But nowadays, whenever I start something new, I don't concentrate on how good or bad I am at it, or on trying to design the perfect plan, or trying to look for the best techniques. My main goal for the first few months or a year is to just show up and practice. Because as Woody Allen said, 80% of success is just showing up. Thank you.
I had a feeling that you will finish the speech with this Woody Allen quote, but now that it's really officially finished, I'll stop the recording.